The building was nearly empty, its vast corridors echoing with the faint hum of lights and the soft whir of cleaning machines in the distance. It was well past working hours when Daniel Carter, the CEO of one of the largest tech firms in the country, stepped out of the elevator. He had returned unexpectedly to retrieve some urgent documents, expecting the place to be silent and still. As he walked toward his office, a soft, unfamiliar light spilled out from under the door. His brow furrowed. At this hour, no one should be there. Pushing the door open quietly, Daniel was met with an unexpected sight. Maria, the maid who had been working in the building for years, sat at his desk, not cleaning, but completely absorbed in his computer screen. Her posture was tense yet focused, fingers darting across the keyboard with astonishing speed. The screen displayed a complicated spreadsheet, dense with numbers and formulas, data that only his top executives handled. For a moment, Daniel simply stood there, caught between confusion and curiosity, wondering why a maid was working on something so highly confidential. The glow from the monitor lit Maria's face, revealing an intensity in her eyes he had never seen before. She was working with purpose, not hesitating for even a second, as if she had been waiting her whole life to solve the problem in front of her. In that quiet, unexpected moment, Daniel sensed that something far bigger than a late-night office visit was about to unfold. Daniel's eyes stayed fixed on the screen, unable to believe what he was seeing. The numbers Maria was working on weren't ordinary figures, they represented the company's biggest crisis in years, a $200 million logistical nightmare involving supply chain bottlenecks and soaring costs. For months, his best analysts and strategists had been tearing their hair out over this problem, holding endless meetings and producing nothing close to a solution. Yet Maria's hands moved over the keyboard with effortless precision, rearranging formulas, shifting data points, and running simulations in a matter of seconds. Every change she made tightened the figures, closed financial gaps, and smoothed out the plan with surgical accuracy. Daniel took a cautious step closer, his heartbeat quickening. Could this really be happening? The final numbers on the screen balanced perfectly, an elegant, cost-saving plan that no one else had even come close to producing. Before he could speak, Maria looked up and froze. Realizing she'd been caught, her eyes widened in shock and fear. She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the chair, and began to stammer an apology. She said she was sorry for touching his computer, that she had only been experimenting during a break, her voice shaking as though she expected to be fired on the spot. But Daniel wasn't thinking about discipline. He was thinking about the brilliance he had just witnessed. This wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was raw, undeniable talent, hidden in plain sight, working quietly with a mop and broom. Daniel didn't raise his voice or dismiss her. Instead, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind, "How do you know all this?" Maria hesitated, her hands twisting nervously, eyes darting to the floor. Finally, she took a shaky breath and began to speak. She told him that years ago, in her home country, she had been a lead engineer for a major manufacturing company. She specialized in systems optimization and had worked on multi-million-dollar projects, solving problems very much like the one on his screen. But life had changed in an instant when her husband died unexpectedly, leaving her with 2 young children and mounting debts. Opportunities in her country dried up, and to give her kids a better future, she had taken a chance and moved to the United States. With no recognition of her credentials and little time to navigate the complicated process of re-entering her profession, Maria took the first job she could find, cleaning offices at night. It was honest work, but far from the career she had once loved. She admitted that she often looked at the executives' discarded reports out of curiosity, quietly keeping her mind sharp. Tonight, she had seen the problem on the computer and couldn't resist the challenge. Tears welled in her eyes as she said she never intended to interfere, she just missed the feeling of solving something important. Daniel listened silently, struck by the quiet dignity and brilliance hidden behind her modest uniform. The next morning, the atmosphere in the boardroom was tense. Senior executives shuffled their notes, expecting another grueling meeting about the $200 million crisis. Daniel walked in with an unusual energy, carrying not a stack of reports, but a single sheet of paper. Behind him, to everyone's surprise, was Maria, wearing her cleaning uniform, looking both nervous and confused about why she was there. Without preamble, Daniel began by stating that the problem they had been battling for months was officially solved. Murmurs spread around the table, some skeptical, others curious. He then gestured toward Maria and said, "The person who solved it isn't in this room because of her title. She's here because of her talent." The executives exchanged puzzled looks. Daniel explained how, the night before, Maria had reworked the entire model in minutes, producing a flawless solution. He projected her plan onto the screen, walking them through each step. The room grew silent as realization sank in. Her work was not only correct but ingenious, eliminating waste, streamlining operations, and saving the company $200 million. Then Daniel did something no one expected. He announced that effective immediately, Maria would be the new head of operations, overseeing the plan she had created. Gasps and scattered applause filled the room, some people even standing in shock. Maria's eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she tried to process what was happening. Daniel smiled and said, "Talent is everywhere. We just have to be willing to see it." Word of what happened in that boardroom spread quickly, first through the company and then across the internet. Employees who had barely noticed Maria before now greeted her with respect and admiration. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a lesson in hidden potential and the importance of looking beyond appearances. Messages poured in from around the world, people who had once been overlooked sharing how the story gave them hope. Maria, once invisible in the hallways, now found herself leading teams, mentoring young employees, and shaping decisions that would impact thousands of lives. She carried herself with quiet confidence, never forgetting the years she had spent cleaning offices while her mind yearned for bigger challenges. Daniel's decision became a turning point for the company. Inspired by Maria's journey, he launched a new internal program to identify and nurture untapped talent among employees at every level, from the mailroom to the executive suite. The corporate culture shifted, becoming one that valued skill, curiosity, and heart over titles and resumes. For Maria, the promotion was more than a job, it was a chance to reclaim the part of herself she thought was lost forever. She often said she didn't just get a new role, she got her life back. And for everyone who heard her story, it was a reminder that greatness can come from anywhere, and sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to look past the uniform to see the brilliance beneath.